Ciao, sweets. This is Gemma with your full comprehensive rundown on Mars and the esoteric effects of Mars. So let me just first preface by saying I was trying to make this into a video. For some reason, it was not up. Anyways, technical issues. So this planetary esoteric effect is going to be an audio recording, but I believe that you can still get all of this juicy information from my voice and not just a talking head. All right, let's get started. So what I wanted us to focus on is understanding Mars's role essentially in one, building the body and its functionality through the thymus gland, through its relationship with the blood, because this is going to give us a better understanding. It can better help you understand the full esoteric aspects of Mars, and not only how it builds the physical body, but the underlying energy behind that, which affects the physical body, but is literally the effects of the mind and the emotional body, and Mars's deep role in terms of the desire body. Now, the desire body, before I get into it, is essentially any past desires in this lifetime or previous, primarily previous, that have been unfulfilled. And so Mars helps work as a bridge to connect the astral body and take that energy and invigorate that life force into the other subtle bodies and then thusly into the physical body. So Mars works as a unique bridge, not like a bridge like Mercury, but a bridge in terms of the energy of activation. And this is key. It's key to understanding how it's going to activate your dreams, your desires, and carry them forward. It's key in understanding how it's going to activate your life force, your power, your drive, and also how it's going to manifest within the physical form, the gross body. Okay, so when we look at the effects of Mars, we must understand that the principal role of this planetary body has a much deeper influence. Mars's role, again, is connected to enlivening the physical form and to carry the wisdom from the soul's directive and to give this soul's directive force, power, vitality, vigor, and it helps move these thoughts into action. So Mars is the energy, the embodied planetary energy that moves thoughts into actions. As I go into this, let me just stop and say that I want you to think of these not as so much as planetary bodies, but energy centers. Really, think of the planets as primary energy focal points that elicit the same type of electromagnetic signatures within us. And within us, we have these same electromagnetic signatures that influence the planets. Micro as above, so below is the axiom, right? Okay, so as Mars is responsible for moving thoughts into actions, it's a positive charge. It's a masculine energy or a positive charge, especially within the blood. And we see this in iron. And I want you to understand, Mars will work will, and it will gather images from the external as well as from the internal thought process and help bridge it with the desire body and the soul's directive. So this is where it acts like a bridge. Mercury is a communication. Mars is literally helping carry the emotions and the thoughts of that we're receiving that is within our blood and our body and relaying it back. So it really is a very physical aspect and a creative aspect. And it's helping, so this is how it bridges to help bring certain thoughts and desires into the external world. How to push forward, how to pull back. Think about it like a warrior, right? How am I moving things into my goal? And this is how it brings things into materialization. Here is where we understand the relationship between iron and how iron within our physical form is responsible for our vitality. It carries oxygen through our blood. It is building. It's a very building element. It is a very building nutrient. And with this, right, it is an element as well, but it has strength, right? So when you are anemic, for example, you don't feel strong. You feel weak, you feel bruised, you feel out of breath. Again, this is the connection between Mars and Prana life force. So now we see this energy moving more into physical form and the embodiment of physical form. Mars carries both divine intelligence and works into material imprinting for manifested reality. This mind intelligence and body connection can also be seen when the mind is active with thoughts. The more active we are with thoughts, which is prana helps move thoughts, then we see more blood moves to the head. This is, again, here you're seeing this correlation. When the body is digesting, more blood flows down to the gut and gives vitality to transform the processes of digestion. Mars, there we see, is connected with life force of movement, empowering how life force moves. So it is one in one in terms of this bridge of receiving thoughts, receiving desire bodies, moving things into action, and fueling life force for certain processes within material form. This is also a creative force that can be seen in the larynx. Okay. When prana is in the throat, when we have this chakra activated within the throat, this is a deeper connection to desires. The throat will actually reflect some of our deep dream states, and is actually a reflection point, just side note, of your root chakra. So, which is a gender chakra. But if you see this, then you see how Mars works when it is in the throat. It gives in the larynx, it helps actually fuel desires and dreams. It helps bring that into an outward manifestation. The spiritual body to the physical body is really where we can understand the subtle elements of Mars. Because when Mars moves from the desire body, it helps build the physical body. And that desire body is a key component in building the physical body. Again, you came into this physical form to fulfill a certain desire or purpose or dharma or role. Now Mars is going to be that bridge that helps build a physical body, so that can come into manifestation. Mars rules the blood, and the blood builds the body from the seed. Now, let's get into this. The highest byproduct of the vital body is nourishment into the physical form. This is the bridge that aids in ego and aids in the vehicle ego manifestation, and how the soul, remember, ego is not bad. It's when we only rely on ego. But ego's role is part of the individuated self. It's how you create through divine in your own unique way. Mars here helps build the ego through the desire body from the guidance of the soul. It helps one understand and create to help continue this individuation, this ego self, this unique body, through the soul's directive. And so here Mars injects into the mind and the body every thought, every feeling, every emotion, and carries this. This is why it's so important to make sure that the blood is clear and the motions are flowing, because whatever is stagnant, Mars will carry this to the lung. There is a unique connection between Mars, or the energy of Mars in the blood, and the lung. The organ of the spleen is where blood gets recycled and clean. Within the spleen, we have a connection. It's also seen within Chinese medicine, the LU1 line, which is a line in the lungs, which goes right above the bronchial plexus. This area here is we're seeing where the blood is not being filtered, it becomes stagnant. It will store grief and stagnant emotions in the lungs. We store old emotions in the lungs. So it's so important, Mars being the manifestation of prana. Again, prana, breath work, is the strongest way. The lungs is a very potent way that we connect to the subtle essence, the subtle energy. So the lungs, the spleen, Mars, the blood, the reason I want to point this out is whenever you feel stagnant or not courageous or feeling like you have the desire and you know where you want to go, but it's scary, clean your blood. It'll help you move through stagnant emotions. Work into the lungs, use pranayama, and start to open into these practices of turning inward. So any twists that move inward will help to move the blood, help work the spleen, and then opening out will help move it out. These are practices, yogic practices, that will work into the physical form that will then send the messaging through the subtle body. It's all one energy. It's just different vibrations. So if you ever feel this, utilize these practices. Again, twisting inward and then opening outward is going to help work with these energies. In addition to that, moving or cleaning the blood, like iodine, chlorophyll, seaweed, are amazing aspects that are going to work through that on a very basic level. I'll get into other herbs and I'll get into the 3 aspects of Mars. But this is just for you guys to understand the emotional connection within the lungs, okay? Now, again, we see because Mars moves past life and previous desires forward into physical form, it's also very clear to keep that conduit open. So remember, it's a bridge from the external thoughts of processing, carrying it back, and then from the soul directive, carrying it forward. So it's important to keep that conduit open, not only from the mental and emotional state, but it is also very important to see and witness any memories or emotions that are stagnated, okay? Now, the development of Mars within the physical form is from the ductless gland. We have 7 of them, and this one is thymus. This gland is the largest in a fetus. This is what is so beautiful and fascinating when we get into esoteric, deeper practices of understanding the energy. The thymus is the largest in the fetus and begins to diminish at the age of 14. Now, the thymus's role is to develop blood, be blood producing. Let me relay back. Remember, I said that Mars is connected to the blood and the blood is building. When a woman becomes pregnant, one of the first things that happens is the blood volume within a female body doubles. It's preparing for this building action of bringing soul's directive of this unique soul into physical manifestation. Now, when the blood is producing, what's happening is the establishment of blood carries the I am self, the ego, the I self, the individuated unique self. The thymus gland from fetus is the largest gland, and then it's the largest gland that's producing blood. So it's basically still connected to individual, it's more connected to this, it's a spiritual gland, it's more connected to spirit. And when the thymus gland begins to shrink over the years, and it finally fully shrinks about at the age of 14. We know esoterically at the age of 14 is where we start to come into our desire body of the I am self. And you can see this in many teenagers, right? We see them becoming more ego, like I know what I want, their desire body. Even sexually, again, Mars is a gendered planet. Of male masculinity, of having sexual desires starts to develop and become more prominent around this age. You see now that the individuated self wants to take its desires into physical manifestation. So at 14 years old, the thymus begins to shrink and stops doing the blood production role. Essentially, at that point, red marrow takes over. And when this happens zodiacally, we see this in Leo, or the birth of the I am position of the individuated self comes into fruition. The assimilation and growth depend on the forces working behind the positive pull of the body's chemical ether. So the assimilation of one's personal growth really depends on this subtle body of a chemical response. The body and the individual will gather contributing planetary and external and spiritual forces and then direct it and initiate propagation. Again, Mars is gendered. We have this as this initial building. The I am individuated self is gathering all the information from the ethereal body, from the previous life desires, from all of this mental processing that it's gathered over the previous 14 years and many lifetimes, and it's starting to bring this together. And it's starting to externalize these spiritual forces and the directive, and it's starting to create more of its own individuated self. This primary aspect happens from the age of 7 to 14 years. Now we see from 7 to 14 years, again, the strengthening of the ego self, the strengthening of the I am consciousness. When blood overheats, passion is there. It's a lower ego aspect. So when we see blood connected to passion, it is the gendered aspect or the animal nature, or when the ego has predominated. This is not when Mars is working in its highest essence, okay? When there's a normal blood pH, then the mind can actually carry higher impulses and bring things into life as the soul directs. Thinking, again, is connected to blood. Mars carries directive and carries thoughts and emotions, so these processes are very important in Mars. The reason I really want to point this out is the importance of keeping the blood clean is actually your bridge to keeping your soul's directive into manifestation clean. Okay, when there's high blood pressure, we understand, or high blood sugar, we understand the implications of high insulin, of diabetes. But pH, more importantly, is directly related to ego and how it carries higher consciousness. So it's very important to keep the blood pH clean. And again, chlorophyll and some of these natural things, moderating sugar, alcohol, dairy, these things that affect the blood. Okay. So pH balance within the blood, very important. And another thing, let's reconnect on iron. Mars represents iron. Iron dissolves with heat, and it is iron that attracts oxygen in our blood. So Mars, it works with prana to attract, and this is what we carry life force forward. It carries oxygen through the blood. And this also, Mars will show with this interaction within the physical body, actually will show the connection to the solar element and the interrelation with the sun. Now, the proper heart for expression of the ego is not present in the mind until the mind is born from the microcosmic concrete mind, which occurs about at 21 years of age. So we have this 17 to 14 really building more of this understanding individuated self, and then we have this culmination of the microcosmic mind at the age of 21. Now Mars into food assimilates, it carries oxygen into the body, and it's again a connection to the desire body into physical form. Now, the desire body doesn't fully activate within a child until the Martian aspect is complete around 14 years. And we see this in a physical hormonal desires, as well as the desires of the soul coming into development. It helps understand Mars's role in building and also carrying forward this desire body. Now, before the 14th year, it's viewed that a parent's love should be a sustaining factor that supplements one's connection to desire. Because before 14 years old, and even before 7, especially before 7, the desire of oneself isn't really fully manifested. And so this is where Venus's influence comes in. But at this point, until 14 years old, the parent's love is what helps build the ego body into the individuated self, and helps supplement the nourishing aspect or the feminine aspect until Venus starts to as well build up within the body. Now, again, going back, the thymus gland retracts, begins to shrink. And when the thymus gland shrinks over the ages of 0 to 14, again, it completely shrinks at the age of 14. Once the thymus gland retracts, blood alchemizes the child, and as it grows smaller and becomes not smaller, but I shouldn't say retract, but shrinks, but it like stops becoming the primary gland of blood production. This is when Martian forces become stronger and stronger. So every year essentially is when it happens, and then from there we see Venus's influence. I don't want to get too much into Venus's influence because her influence changes on octaves and her own phases. But when we work understanding and working with pranic transformative aspects, you must work through the physical pranic form. This is working through the anatomical chemical actions, okay? This is what I was talking about in terms of working with asana. Doing the inner twisting inward, so moving, like, for example, your left side body in towards the navel center, and then opening up the opposite right side body. And doing alternate ways of this. And this is really what is happening, is that we're really working the anatomical chemical reaction that's working into the physical spiritual body. Okay. Another aspect I want you guys to understand is working with those movements are going to help move the vayu outward. So again, it's so important if you're feeling sluggish or stagnant, and really it's so important to work with these energies in order to move the aspects forward. If you're feeling like you know where you want to go, the desire is there, your goals are there, but you're not as courageous, or you keep backing down, or you're doing self-sabotage mechanisms, implement this asanas, okay? Twists. If you're feeling unstable, make sure they are grounded twists, either seated or in a chair position, not like in a lunge position, which is more disabling. Okay, another aspect I want to point out in working with Mars and the anatomic chemical is actually working with colors. And in this aspect, rose pink is very, very, very important. This is where the color, when we're looking at energetic, sun enters through the spleen in a pale rose color. And again, as I mentioned, the spleen's role is to filter the blood. So if you imagine a pale pink color, it's also soothing, but it's not completely cool like a soft blue would be. So this pale pink color is a grounded, purified energy of Mars. And from the Tibetan lineage, they use pale or rose colored pink to help actually full body healing, working with the visualization, so the movement of prana. So you can utilize the color of pale pink to help implement a soothing aspect, okay, a transformative and a healing aspect. This meditation on the pale color of pink is going to work in the physical and the astral form, and it allow the physical to be transformed, so the astral connection and astral lineage is higher wisdom conduit, basically, is a lot cleaner. Okay. When again you're working at the asanas into twists, and you're heating and you're cleaning the blood, and we're working with the chemical anatomical to work into the spiritual form, you're really working a higher state of development. You're utilizing the aspects of heat, because when we're moving into twists, we are reworking the blood flow, but we're also working heat. We're working into the solar plexus. And so when we're doing that, we're working with heat, we're actually working with Mars's transformative power and the ability to carry higher wisdom. So even just the intention of doing this is going to be highly impactful. And of course, if you follow that with meditating on the color rose pink, moving from the belly outward, it's going to be even tenfold. Okay. The important aspect to retouch on this is it's really important to elevate the mind and the thoughts carried by Mars through the physical body into the astral realm. And it helps in terms of how the physical body works through the world. Now, it's going to elevate these energies through thought forms and the service to higher wisdom and the service to soul directive. These actions work to enliven prana and carry higher wisdom into more powerful purpose. You'll see the same effects when we look at steam, right? Where we're seeing things transform and be lifted up. And really quick, just to touch on before we get deeper into blood, emotions, again, really important. Mars has such a special connection with fear and power. And of course, love and fear are two opposite spectrums. So as a direct correlation of moving love and moving fear into the body, it's so important to move fear out of the body, or else it stores in the lungs and it creates stagnation. But it will hold us back. It holds the way we transform. It holds the way we create. It holds the way that we receive directive. And we know that emotions create chemical reactions within the body. We know that emotions have a direct neurochemistry within the body, within the endocrine, within the hormonal system. So working with Mars will help work with some of these emotions and help move them out. Okay. Let's get into the herbs and the 3 parts of Mars. Before I get into that, I really want to point Mars, as we know, we talk about blood, right? But we also think blood is lineage. So I really want to point out that your blood is individuated. It is yours because it is a part of the individuated self that comes into physical form, as I had mentioned, with the thymus gland and the blood and the ego aspects. But Mars, again, with that bridge, is going to be a bridge to your ancestral line for many lifetimes. It's a hereditary thing that we pass on. And it's the astral lineage that it works. And so when you work with these aspects of Mars on a higher esoteric realm, you're actually awakening some of the deeper lineages within your bloodline that's being carried through to you. And that's all I'll say about that. So, okay, when we work with Mars, we're working into the chemical body and also into the physical and the astral bodies. what I want us to highlight is Mars and herbs is not just the herbs that Mars governs. That's not what we're working with here. When you look at just the herbs that Mars governs, you're just looking at similarities of the actions of Mars, which is fine. But what I really want to impart and teach you guys is when you understand the energy of this planetary body or the energy of this center, you will understand, especially when we're doing correspondence with herbs, it's not just a simple rulership. You have to understand that there are aspects within the body, within the multiple physical, astral, and subtle realms that are working with that same signature of the plant. And that plant, in essence, also has seasons. And so it gets a lot more in depth. And what I want to teach you, or what I am teaching you, is to understand the energetic resonance in multiple forms and not just a correspondence based on an energetic governance. Okay? All right. So energetic and atomic role within the body. Now, when you're working with the plants of Mars, I always, sempre, tutti, always everybody, work with horary, which is time. You want to work with the application of time. And whether you're just doing it on a day, so Mars rules Tuesday. If you're just doing that, that is still working with the application of time. Now, if you want to get more into it, I would recommend working with the hour that Mars rules. And not only working with the hour, but also working on a day in which the masculine energy is dominant, Pingala. This is Svara Yoga. This is going to connect the cognitive parts of the brain, the cosmic prana, and you're going to empower it even more. So very simply, Svara Yoga, when it's a Pingala dominated day, and it's a Tuesday, it'd be a great time to work with Mars if you don't want to look into the hours that Mars rules. This is going to bring a same intention and alignment with the signature of the herb. Okay, so let's get into blood and herbs and the three parts of working with this in the Martian energy. Blood separates into three parts. Plasma, which is actually the energy of Cancer, very moon ruled. It's more the watery. The red blood cells, which is the Martian influence on blood primarily. That's what gives it the color red. And this is influenced by Scorpio, Mars ruled house. And then also, esoterically, more importantly, is fibrin. Fibrin is it's like a protein, and it's a stringy matter of protein. And this aspect of the blood essentially falls in Pisces, and it's Jupiter. These are all the water planets. Blood is liquid. It's water in motion. It's fire water, essentially. But it's also going to indicate the deeper connection of emotions, of where spirit creates through water. Okay, and fibrin, ruled under Pisces, which is Jupiter, is the connection of divine intelligence. This is where we see Mars connecting and bringing action, color, red blood cells into fulfillment, right? So the higher wisdom. Now, these three parts will show the level of connection to prana, the forms of wisdom, and within the levels of the body and the role Mars plays as an intermediary. The plasma, Cancer-ruled moon, the emotions, the thought processes, red blood cells that Mars rules in Scorpio. This is the manifestation, the creation from previous lifetimes, from desire, from the generation. Again, Scorpio also rules sexual energy, and that's generation. I want you to think gender means to generate, right? It is the ability for masculine and feminine to come together and create, co-create, procreate. So now we see these red blood cells there. And then Mars's role, and the third aspect of the blood, fibrin, the protein, the stringy matter, ruled with Pisces and Jupiter. This is divine connection. So when we're working different aspects of these blood, you're actually working that subtle component within the subtle body. Okay? And that's how you're going to understand how to work with Mars on a deeper level. Another thing that I want to point out is, remember when we have chemical reactions within the body, this fire, water, it's the endocrine system. It's your hormonal system. It's the foremost of these processes. Thymus is a gland that's responsible for the production of part, but it's also a part of the lymphatic system, which is a water system. And then we have its role with the endocrine system, fire, water. So now you see this role of Mars not working just with plants that are governed by Mars by the action of heating and activating. But actually, you can work into the systems, whether it be the lymphatic system, whether it's the endocrine system, or the actual blood itself, and you're going to work these into the chemical reactions within the subtle body and the astral body. Ah, amazing, no? I think it is. Okay. I know you guys do too. Plasma cancer, I want to give you an herb, iris root. Red blood cells, Indian madder root. Fibrins that work with the Jupiterian energy in Pisces, lotus root, primarily the rose lotus. If you can't find lotus root, you can also use peony, which would work well. And if you can't find Indian madder root, you can also use suma root, which is Brazilian ginseng. Okay, my loves, that is all of your deep esoteric and aspects of Mars as it works into the esoteric roles, as it works into the physical body and its roles on the bridge. I hope this serves you. Be well, and sending lots and lots of love. Tanti Bachi. Ciao.